Peoples of the world, it's Capital G bringing you another episode of the EDH Community Theater, highlighting real decks played by real people over on our Discord groups and on Spell Table. And BootyMagic is back with another tribal list for us. This time bringing us Krenko, Mob Boss. Of course, prior to that, just a quick update on the socials. There's my Discord link, as well as my TikTok link. All sorts of shenanigans going on there, some magic related and some on other topics such as fatherhood and music. Server of many things, the place that I primarily play at this point. You don't have to type this down. The link is going to be in the description below. And of course, Board Game Arena. They just got Wingspan. I've been wanting to try Wingspan since it came out about 2 years ago, I think. So they just got it online on Board Game Arena. If you want to give the game a go with me, please look for me on Board Game Arena and DM me, and let's make that happen. All right, Krenko, Mob Boss, a very, very well-known infamous commander in our format. We love ourselves our Gobbos. So, 4 mana for this 3/3 Goblin Warrior. Tap it. Create X, 1/1 red Goblin creature tokens, where X is the number of goblins we control. And of course, the pack one, pick one for this particular deck is Mana Echoes. Because we're tapping Krenko. If we've got 5 goblins, we make 5 more goblins. That means with Mana Echoes, we make an insane amount of mana. And yes, Mana Echoes is the pack 1 pick 1, the pack 1 pick 2, or pack 2 pick 2 as it were. The math is weird on this one. But what's not weird is what happens when you have Mana Echoes out and you've got an Umbral Mantle attached to our Krenko. All of a sudden we have infinite mana and infinite goblins, not to mention that Krenko himself will be huge. And, you know, might commander damage someone out. And what I like about Umbral Mantle here, it's good even without Mana Echoes, because that's 3 mana, untap Krenko, get more goblins. So that's even without the Mana Echoes, a great addition to the deck. Krenko, of course, has always been vulnerable to the board wipe, but when it has combo potential like this hidden in the 99, it more than makes up for that weakness. And we're going to see a couple more examples of this as we go through the rest of the list. Let's start with some of our artifacts. Basalt Monolith here, just a nice quick little mana booster when we need it. Grow Mox. We get to exile a non-artifact, non-land card from our hand, and then this taps for the mana of that color, ideally red, because, well, mono red. Hammer of Perforos. Creatures we control have haste. Haste is a big thing we want in this deck. Don't worry about the activated ability of sacrificing a land for a golem. Super, super rare. I've never actually seen anyone activate it, honestly. So it's just here for the haste enabler. Helm of the Host. Uh-oh. This always spells trouble when you see it. Because of the well-known infinite combo with Godo Bandit Warlord. Is Godo in the list? Yes, it is. A little off theme. But again, because of how vulnerable a simple Goblin Go White strategy can be, having this in the back pocket is always a good thing. Jeweled Lotus, we're playing some faster mana rocks in this particular deck, not because the mana curve is high, but because this deck wants to end the game quickly and efficiently. Lightning Greaves for the Haste and Shroud. Lotus Petal. It's basically a free treasure coming out of your hand. Mage Right Stone. Untap a creature that has an activated ability with tap in its cost. Hey, our commander does. Perfect. Mana Crypt. Mana Vault. The Mox Opal. This only taps for mana if you control 3 or more artifacts. We've got lots of artifacts here, so no worries about that. Altars. Obviously, sacrificing our goblins for mana is always a good thing. Rings of Brighter. Whenever we activate an ability, if it is not a mana ability, we can pay an additional 2 mana to copy it. Yes. Absolutely. Top to help us dig a little bit. Skull Clamp. Hey, our goblins only have 1 point of toughness. So, sack off our goblins, get some more cards. Soul Ring. The Staff of Domination. Another payoff for infinite mana. If our goblins are not hasty, but we have the staff, this will help us draw into our haste enabler. Or whatever other endgame condition we want to use. Thornbite Staff. This is a weird ad. Equipped creature has 2 tap. This creature deals 1 damage to target creature or player. And whenever this creature is put into a graveyard from play, or not this creature, but a creature is put into a graveyard from play, untap this creature. I mean, it's still infinite goblins if we attach this to our Krenko. It's 4 to equip. That's a heavy equip cost. Whenever a shaman creature comes into play, we can attach Thornbite Staff to it for free. Do we have any shamans in the deck? Of course we do. It's Kiki Jiki. It's a shaman. So we don't need to attach this to Kiki Jiki. We can attach it to Krenko, but the fact that this can attach to Kiki Jiki, copy, say, a goblin token, we sacrifice it to our altar. Well, again, we go infinite with that. Easy. Moving on from that, we have the 1,000-year elixir, of course, another way to untap our creatures. It also says that we can play the activated abilities of creatures we control as though they had haste, which Krenko absolutely loves. Our last little artifact here will be Throne of the God Pharaoh, which at the beginning of our end step, each opponent loses life equal to the number of tapped creatures we control. We swing at someone with 15 goblins. That's a totally low ball number, by the way, 15. Then, when it comes to the end step, we've got 15 tapped gobos. The whole table loses another 15 life. Such is the plan. So, it is Goblin Tribal. We're going to be playing a lot of our favorite goblins here. We've got the Conspicuous Snoop, which lets us cast goblins from the top of our library, so good card advantage engine with this. And also, if the top card of our library has an activated ability, because we've got 20 goblins in the deck. If it happens to have an activated ability and it's on top of our deck, this has that activated ability. Dockside. Of course, we're going to run Dockside. It's a goblin. It just fits thematically. Gets us all the mana we need. Goblin Chieftain. Other goblin creatures we control have +1/+1 and have haste, which, again, fantastic. Once we combo off, we want to be able to attack with our goblins right away. So this allows us to do that. Goblin Surgeon. Sacrifice a goblin, regenerate a target creature. A friendly reminder on what regenerate is. If a creature would be destroyed, it is instead tapped, and any damage dealt to it this turn is removed. So a great sacrifice outlet here, by the way. It's just a free sack outlet for goblins at the very worst. And at its very best, it protects our key goblins from most removal spells. The Goblin King. Other goblin creatures we control have +1/+1 and Mounted Walk. The Goblin Lackey. Whenever this deals damage to a player, we can put a goblin permanent card from our hand onto the battlefield. Got the Goblin Matron, which lets us tutor for a goblin. The Goblin Recruiter, this lets us tutor all of our goblins and put them on top of our library. The Ringleader, where this enters the battlefield, we get to reveal the top 4 cards of our library, put all goblin cards revealed this way into our hand. So obviously when you go Goblin Recruiter, Goblin Ringleader is on top, followed by 4 more goblins typically. Goblin Sharpshooter, another way to combo off. If you've got this on the battlefield ready to go, and we can generate infinite goblins and sacrifice said goblins, well, whenever a creature dies, untap the Sharpshooter. Tap the Sharpshooter to deal 1 damage to, and it actually should read any target. So this does in fact hit Planeswalkers, even though the text doesn't say so. It's the old wording. But it definitely does the thing we want it to do, which is, deal as much damage as we need to knock our opponents out of the game. Goblin War Chief gives us a little mana reduction on most of our goblins, and also grants haste. Goblin Wizard, this is an older one. Tap to put a goblin permanent card from our hand into play. Amazing. And for a single red, target goblin gains protection from white until end of turn. White is one of the premier targeted removal colors. So being able to defend against the Swords to Plowshares or Path to Exile, Declaration in Stone, or anything of the like. Fantastic. We've got the Hobgoblin Bandit Ward coming in from the Forgotten Realms. Other goblins we control get +1/+1, so great lord effect here. Red, tap. This deals damage equal to the number of goblins that entered the battlefield under your control this turn to any target. Yeah, just boom. Drop the boom on someone with something like this, especially when we're tapping Krenko and getting, 6, 7, 8 goblins at a time. Imperial Recruiter. It's not a goblin, but it lets us tutor for any creature card with power 2 or less, and that applies to the vast majority of our goblins, including Kiki Cheeky, which we've already talked about. There's Krenko again, this time the Tin Street Kingpin. Whenever this attacks, it gets a 1/1 counter, then we create a bunch of goblins equal to its power. Just another way to generate some goblins. He has to attack, however, so that leaves him a bit more vulnerable than our commander would be. Still a fantastic card. Goblin Mons. When this or another goblin we control dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. Fantastic. Again, if we manage to generate an infinite amount of goblin tokens and then sack them off, this will finish the job. It also has its own sack outlet. It's a little expensive. 4 mana, sack a goblin, create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. This is reminiscent of the card Mons Goblin Raiders. One card I accidentally skipped over, going right back one step here, is Muxus Goblin Grandee. 6 mana for this 4/4 Noble. And when it enters the battlefield, reveal the top 6 cards of our library. Put all goblin creature cards with converted mana value 5 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Even better for the Imperial Recruiter in the late game if you've got enough mana to cast this. You cast your Recruiter, the following turn you cast Muxus. Just so much value for that 6 mana. And then whenever this attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each other goblin we control. Not a goblin, but still a very effective ad here is Perforos, God of the Forge. If we're spitting out 6, 7, 8 goblins at a time, and each of those 6, 7, 8 goblins are dealing 2 damage to each of our opponents, yeah, games end very, very quickly. Our last creature of the deck is the Skirk Prospector, which says sacrifice a goblin, add a red mana to our mana pool. This common is just devastating when it comes down, especially again, we're generating so many goblins at a time that this is going to generate us a bunch of mana at a time. Fantastic stuff. Going to look at some enchantments now. Mono red, which means we're running Blood Moon to shut off everyone's non-basic lands. We've got a couple of non-basics ourselves, but it's not vital to the game plan if we don't have them. Bogart Shenanigans. Whenever another goblin you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may have this deal 1 damage to target player. So again, another way for our goblins dying to punish our opponents. Tribal Enchantment Goblin. Mark Rosewater, by the way, has been asking if what we want to see if we go back to Lorwyn. A lot of people saying they want to see Tribal back, but I don't know if that's an easy sell. We will see. The power level of the game has definitely changed enough that it might be fine this time about, but we'll see what the Magic Design team thinks when we finally make our return there, because they're teasing it. Mark Rosewater is teasing it now. Fervor, giving all our creatures haste. Goblin Bombardment, another free sack outlet. This one deals 1 damage to any target anytime we sacrifice a creature. And Impact Tremors, same as Perforos, rewards us for having a bunch of goblins enter the battlefield. No planeswalkers here, so let's go to instants and sorceries. Starting with the Brightstone Ritual for a single red. Count up how many goblins we haven't played. That's how much red mana we get. By the way, this is all goblins, not just yours. So if somebody else happens to have an incidental goblin or 2 sitting out there, we count them. Chaos Warp, premier removal in mono red. Deflecting Swat, a great way to protect our commander from targeted removal. Choose new spells, new targets for target spell or ability. Desperate Ritual, 2 mana, get 3. Don't worry about the splice on Arcane. There weren't any other Arcane spells. Lightning Bolt. I still profess that Lightning Bolt is a commander staple. The number of targets this gets is insane when you think about it. Like, there's never a game where you draw Lightning Bolt and not use it. Pyretic Ritual, 2 mana, add 3. Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast are both here to either destroy blue permanents or counter blue spells. And our last instant, Shock. Now, I've got thoughts about Shock. 2 damage to any target, unlike Lightning Bolt, which is 3 damage. It still hits some quality targets, but we definitely lose out on a lot of the 3 toughness creatures. So I'm not sold on this, but it is a fancy version that he has in the deck. So perhaps it's just a little flavor add. I do like the card. Not as much as Bolt, but I do like the card. It's an interesting card, and it's definitely going to catch people by surprise. That's for sure. Our sorceries, we got 11 of them. Cathartic Reunion, discard 2 cards to draw 3. Try and dig through our deck and find all our combo pieces. Faithless Looting does the same thing. Gamble. We can tutor up one of our pieces, but then we have to randomly discard a card. We do risk losing the combo piece if we gamble for it, but when it works, it's spectacular. Geosurge. Spend 4 red mana, add 6 red mana to our mana pool, but only for casting artifacts and creatures. The Goblin Warstrike, deal damage equal to the number of goblins we control to target player. Again, we get an infinite amount of goblins if we can't attack them, if they just happen to have their shields up, have something that makes us pay to attack them for each creature. Well, let's go over the top with this 1 mana red sorcery. Infernal Plunge. Sacrifice a creature, get triple red to our mana pool. So it's a dark ritual, but in red. But we do have to sacrifice a creature. We've got goblins to spare, not an issue there. Jessica's Will, of course. The whole point of the deck is to rush out our commander. And so we can take full advantage of this, get the extra card draw, get the extra mana boost from this card. Seize the Spoils. Pitch 1 card, draw 2 cards, get a treasure. Shatterskull Smashing. A great place to dump our infinite mana when we get there. Red, red, X. Deal X damage if items you choose amongst up to 2 creatures or planeswalkers. If X is 6 or more, deal twice X damage divided as we choose among them instead. So fantastic removal there, and could also be played as a land. So if we don't want to play it as a spell, we could play it on the backside as a land. And it enters the battlefield untapped if you pay the 3 life. So that's always good to see on these MDFCs. Moving on with Tormenting Voice. Pitch 1 card, draw 2, and Vandablast. For 5 mana, destroy all artifacts we do not control. And lands, because we definitely want the value, and because our curve is low enough, just 31 lands here. But we do have the 0 mana rocks to help us make up for this fact. So our lands include the Arid Mesa, which is let's go get a mountain. Cavern of Souls, making sure our goblins are uncounterable. Although you can always surprise someone and say human and use it to cast Godo. Could be a thing you do. Great Furnace, we do have some cards that count the number of artifacts we have in play, so this helps with that. 24 basic mountains. Nykthos, add mana equal to our devotion to red. Scalding Tarn, again, a fetch land to go get a mountain. Valakut, once we have enough mountains, if we control at least... When we play a mountain, if we have at least 5 other mountains, deal 3 damage to any target, so the longer the game goes, the more useful this becomes. And one last fetch land with the Wooded Foothills. Again, some spicy stuff. Combo Krenko action going on here. Thank you again, Booty. Before we go, just a few Gary suggestions, I like to call them. These are just ideas that come to my mind. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're good for this deck. He's had a lot of time to work on this one and really hone it in. I do want to suggest a couple more removal spells, because we don't actually have a lot of non-creature removal. So a thing like a Braid gives us the flexibility to zap a creature or take down an artifact. Or a thing like Wild Magic Surge is a great way to get rid of enchantments. Now, it's a delicate balance, of course. We don't want to have too many targeted removal spells gumming up the works, because we'd rather draw our combo pieces. We're trying to race for that. But by the same token, having some flexible removal, I think is pretty nifty to have. Of course, we're trying to draw into combo pieces, so Valakut Awakening. A little surprised not to see it here. I don't know if the mana value is actually too high for this deck. In fact, that could be the reason. But put any number of cards from our hand onto the bottom of our library, draw that many cards +1. And it can always be played as a land, so this can actually take a land slot in concept rather than a spell slot. So So Valakut Stoneforge would always enter the battlefield tapped. That's the one downside there. But if we do cast it for the intended side, then it'll help us dig for combo pieces a little faster. Light Up the Stage helps with this too. All we have to do is get in for some damage, and this only costs 1 to use the Spectacle. For 1 mana, we get to look at our next 2 cards, and we have the end of our next turn. So not this turn, but the next turn. We have lots of time to cast those cards, so in case we exile a combo piece by accident, we still have access to them. And one newer card, because we're going to see a lot of goblins die. Weatherlight Completed. Again, a great way to help us dig. So for 2 mana, this only becomes a creature once we've had 7 or so other creatures die. That's fine. That's not the point. The point is every time our goblins die, we get to scry 1. And so this helps us dig for our combo piece in a hurry and get it to the top of our deck. Such is my thinking with this. So I think this would be a great add to a Krenko deck that's combo focused. Again, not necessarily this one. Booty, let me know what you think in the comments. But I think this is going to be a fun little add to Krenko to help scry and recover from board wipes, for example. Even if you're not playing the combo, this is just a great recovery piece. And then once it is a creature, we actually draw cards whenever something dies. Actually, there is the one downside that we might want to sacrifice this once it does become a creature. Because if we're comboing off, we don't want to draw ourselves out. So that is one thing to be careful of. But still, Booty, thank you again for putting this together for us and sharing it with the community. And getting a few more lists together and getting to work on the community theater again. Built a couple of Dominaria decks. The Warhammer decks look intriguing, honestly. I'm not really going to cover them here. I'm not really a big Warhammer guy, but those decks do look intriguing. So hopefully someone can let me know if they're as fun as they look. Please tell me in the comments if they are and if I should take a deeper look at them or not. In the meantime, there's the link for the channel. And there's a couple of older videos here for you to come check out. And I will see you all for the next one. Bye for now.